Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a Get Ready With Me. I'm gonna be trying out some of the products that I showed you in my latest haul, but also we're gonna be talking about the last little bit of my pregnancy that I disappeared and the birth of our baby girl and the first month, let's say. She is today that I'm filming, she's 1 month old and she is sleeping now. But she's probably due to eat in like half an hour. So hopefully I will be able to show you her as well once she wakes up. And yeah, I'm gonna be listing all the products that I use down in the description box below so that I can just focus on telling you the story. Let's see, I'm not always very good at this. I tend to then digress and talk about products because that's what I usually do, but I'm gonna try. So, you've seen me last probably in my makeup wish list video that I was 38 weeks pregnant, and at that point, but already before that, I had a really big belly according to my midwives and anybody who I saw, but I mean, especially according to my midwives. They thought, well, this is gonna be a big baby, it's gonna be around 4 kilos, and actually at the last scan they measured her to be growing outside of her percentile line. So the way it works is that a baby, doesn't matter how big they are, as long as they grow on the same trend. So if at some point my bump and my baby was measuring that in 3 weeks they grew way more than what they were supposed to be growing. So at that point they were like, well, the belly is big, the baby is measuring very big, so let's get you on a glucose test. So that's where they check for pregnancy diabetes. And unfortunately I did test, let's say, positive, but it was very, very borderline. I had, what was my numbers? I had a fasting glucose sugar, blood sugar number that was around, or that was under the limit of diabetes. And then I had instead a, after the glucose shot, let's say, this drink that you have to have that is high in sugar, I was over the limit by 0.1. So the limit is 7.8 and I had 7.9, and that's millimoles per liter of sugar in the blood. Now, I talked with other people later, and an actual diabetic person can have up to 20, and that's normal. So I was really, really borderline there, but because of that little number, they said, well, now we have to refer you to the hospital care and to a gynecologist. As a midwifery, we cannot do anything for you anymore. And I was like, excuse me? That is quite a big thing, because I've been 9 months with the midwives and I wanted to stay with them and to keep working with them because I was comfortable. They knew me, they knew my birth preferences, and I was hoping to have a low intervention birth. Whereas once you go hospital and gynecologist and a big baby, they started talking about induction and to have the baby out already at 38 weeks. I said no, and that was based on the fact that I had been then tracking my blood sugar numbers for a few weeks or a week and a half or so, and they were very, very good. So it really seemed like what I ate didn't really impact the baby that or my blood sugar that much. And the risk with high blood sugar in the mother is that the baby grows too much, and also that they might have hypoglycemia. That is when their own, let's say, glucose or insulin situation is a bit messed up. Anyways, since the numbers were so close and my numbers measured at home were good, they told me to measure them, by the way, like I was being checked for it. Then I decided to decline an induction at 38 weeks and to schedule it for 39 weeks and 2 days or something like that. Because also I know from research and from other guidelines in the Dutch system actually, that babies at 39, after 39 weeks, they're pretty much as good as done. and the risks for complications are much lower, and in general they are doing better than if they are born earlier. And that is to say, because we were talking about an induction, since we had a choice, I went with my gut and what I thought was the right thing to do and the research that I did. The gynecologist agreed to it because she said, well, your belly is big, but it's not abnormally big, and we think the baby will be 4 kilos, but my husband is also 185, and the average baby is 3.5 kilos, so you're not like really very off. So that was the choice we made, and that is just how it happened. And the decision on the date of the induction was made on, I think it was on a Monday. I had an appointment with the gynecologist in the afternoon, and it was quite a rocky few weeks, to be honest. I was really struggling to accept that due to very, very small deviation from numbers, I went from being a low-risk pregnancy with a normal baby to a very big baby with maybe pregnancy diabetes, and now needing to be induced and having to be followed by people I didn't know. Especially that really bothered me. I was really bothered. Like, it was really bad. It took me quite some time to accept the situation as it was, and I think part of it was also because I did some pregnancy courses that really kind of made me, in my head, maybe it was my fault, but in my head I only had like these positive birth stories of people who gave birth at home, and I wanted to give birth in the hospital because I have endometriosis, so I knew that I had an underlying condition that might mean that the pain for me was not going to be bearable at all, and I wanted to give birth in the hospital, but with my midwives, not with the hospital staff. And that is a normal procedure here in the Netherlands for a low risk pregnancy. There's no problem for that. So I was really upset. On a Monday, I had this appointment with a gynecologist. After I refused the 38-week induction, it was a 38 and 5 days. I had this appointment, and we agreed on a date that was 39 and 2 days, I think, for the induction. And that day I went home, quite feeling better because they agreed, and I had processed the information from the previous appointment. They agreed to my plan, so to stay having the baby and me for a little bit longer. And that night I went to bed, and at midnight my water broke. So the baby heard that she was gonna be evicted, and she decided to just come out by herself. Gotta love an assertive lady. I have no problem with that. I was actually very happy because then I didn't have to go through the induction process, and there's a few things that research shows that induction can be conductive to more interventions also down the line, so more C-sections and stuff like that. So I was very happy about that. We were both very happy. Labor was actually quite easy in the beginning. I tried to sleep some. I went downstairs though, not to wake my husband, and I was off and on sleeping on the couch a bit and bouncing on my ball, watching TV. But to be honest, that night was quite okay. I got some good half-hour stretches of sleep, and I didn't mind it at all. I put candles on, it was dim lights, nice easy movies on Netflix. It was quite nice. My contractions were like every 20 or 30 minutes. Nothing major. They were also not that painful, like all fine, to be honest. Then my husband woke up and we had breakfast and we packed the hospital bag, and everything was quite relaxed. We had, good information about when to go to the hospital and things like that. So I wasn't really worried too much, and I was coping really fine at home. It was a good experience. That was until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's when my contractions started actually being like much more often. I was in what they call established labor, and then my contractions were every 10 minutes or so, and lasted 45 seconds to a minute. And that was, my contractions were every 8 to 10 minutes, lasting a minute or so, and I was in early active labor, or so I think it's called. And that started to become painful. Like, I needed my husband with me to remind me to breathe and help me through the pain, let's say. And yeah, it was more challenging, but definitely still doable. And we labored at home together on the couch, on the ball, walking around the house for a few hours until about 4 o'clock. Then my contractions started being much closer together. Then I was having like three in the 10 minutes, and they lasted a minute. So they were every 3 minutes or so, or 2 or 3 minutes. Ooh, that was a bit too much. That became challenging. That was difficult, and then we went to the hospital because it was also the right moment to do that. I talk and I get distracted, and then I do mistakes on my makeup, but that's okay. Can be fixed, right? Can be fixed. And to be honest, up to then, I was doing okay. I was coping. I was dealing with the pain and the contractions just fine. I was not super fine. It wasn't super easy, but it was doable. Like, I was gonna be okay with doing this for quite some time longer. We got to the hospital, and that's when things went south for me, in the sense that immediately, because I was a medical patient and not a low-risk pregnancy anymore, they wanted to monitor the baby with some sensors on the belly. And that meant that I needed to be laying down on the bed on my back. And that was awful. It was really painful. I had a really hard time. Up to then, I had been, my best position was to labor like sitting, with a hot water pouch on my belly. And that was working fine for me. But when they made me be on the bed, then it started to be really bad. Plus, I had a midwife and a nurse that really weren't, clicking with me. I asked to be left alone. I asked to be left in my bubble to concentrate. And they were just in my face talking, asking me questions in Dutch. Where in my birth plan, they asked for my birth plan. I gave it to them. And one of the first things I wrote was, please talk to me in English, because I understand Dutch and I speak Dutch. But between that and being able to speak it and have the mental space to reply to in Dutch during labor, that there's quite a difference. So my preference was, please talk to me in English. Since all of the staff had no problems with English, they had told me, and my midwife said, yeah, of course, we can do everything in English. No problem, don't worry. So that there, my situation started to spiral in what they call a red cycle, or like a red feedback loop, in which it was annoyance and then pain and then fear and adrenaline instead of oxytocin, which is the hormone that you want to be having while having contractions and trying to give birth. So that was not great. When they finally left me off this table, the baby was fine. I was having contractions fine. No problems with the heart rate. I asked, okay, now you have a half an hour of a reading. Can I please labor by myself again? I need to get back into my good space because this is getting too much. I need to get back where I was before, where I was coping with my husband with these contractions to be able to progress and labor. And yeah, they just wanted me on and off to this bed, and it was really annoying, and they wouldn't let me alone. It was just, I don't know. That part was really not nice, and I was actually quite upset. Like I told them to leave the room. I told them, just go. I'm actually getting emotional about it, because I think that ruined it for me. Small break. Okay, I'm trying not to cry because I wanted to apply a new mascara and wanted to test it out. So if I cry, that kind of is pointless. But going forward, I never got back into my bubble. They never left me alone. I never managed to get back into things how I wanted them to be. And at some point I just asked for an epidural because the pain was too much and I couldn't cope with it because all the coping mechanisms, the breathing, the meditation, all the ways I had counted on I couldn't get into them because there were people talking to me all the time and annoying me and wanting to check on me. And I was like, we are fine. You check periodically, but let me find my space. And yeah, that was not okay. Anyways, I asked for the epidural and I got it. And after that, it was much better. The pain was not there anymore. I really liked the amount that they gave me of the epidural, of the painkiller, because I could still move my legs and I could still feel the contractions, but they weren't painful. They were just pressure. So I actually really liked that, and I was quite convinced that I could do this no problem. Unfortunately, during the whole night, in the end, we never progressed in the labor. So I never got to a point where I was dilated enough to push, in short. And that meant that the midwife, after a certain amount of hours, also my waters were broken, so the chances of infection were quite high. And after a certain amount of hours, she recommended that we call the gynecologist on call and prepare for a C-section. I asked for a little bit more time. I didn't want a C-section, mainly for the challenges that come with with recovering from one. And I asked for a little bit more time, but I was still not progressing. And in the end, I ended up having a C-section. It was not a bad experience per se. I was a bit upset because I wanted the umbilical cord to be left attached to the placenta for a few minutes after the baby was born, to give her all her blood back. They say it helps them with keeping weight and being stronger, and that was not possible because after being in labor for a while, all of my muscles and the uterus and the belly part was all very stretched and tense. So the chance of me bleeding out on the operating table was higher. No, the risk was higher than the risk of her not getting all of her blood. So that made me sad and emotional. Plus, you're in labor. I mean, you're sad and emotional about stuff all the time. I had the C-section. We found out the gender of the baby. I asked them to, they showed it to us. And we found out we had a girl. They took her immediately to the pediatrician that was like a table next to me. My husband could be there with her, and they just checked her for a few minutes, and then they put her directly on my chest. And we went to the recovery room. My husband could sleep there, and it was fine. The first few days we stayed there for 2.5 days, I think. But I was experiencing a lot of pain from the C-section. It's okay. I was expecting it to be painful. I was very disappointed that we had to go that way. And I still think that from what I know from the courses I took, that with different coaching from the midwife that was on with me the night that I didn't progress, instead of letting me just sleep, if she would have helped me move around a little bit on the bed, trying to get in different positions to help the baby descend and rotate in the right place, I think that we could have gotten somewhere better. And that is still really sad for me, and a reason that I would maybe hire a doula at some point in the future, someone who would advocate for me and help me in these type of things when I am just out of it and I trust the healthcare provider. They didn't think it would help. I regret not trying. So I think that is there was something wrong in that communication. And I mean, it's not their fault. I just regret that. we came home, and here in the Netherlands, what is great is that you get a nurse at home that is specialized in babies and new moms, and they help you for 8 to 10 days after you give birth. And we had an amazing lady. She was just, I don't know, super knowledgeable, helped us a lot, couldn't stop talking. It was great. I couldn't really do much and move from the bed. I only fed Andrea and slept and tried to recover. I had a lot of pain though. After 5 days, I had a fever, and we called the hospital and they had me go back in, and I then had to stay in the hospital for another 4 days, I think, on antibiotics because I had a huge infection, high fevers, and that was pretty awful. It was not the greatest experience. I am still dealing right now with the outcomes of that. My wound is not closed. I'm still still processing infection, but I don't have a fever anymore, and I'm home. And yeah, Andrea is doing great. She's a month now. She's been growing. Unfortunately, due to the C-section and then due to the infection, breastfeeding has not been sufficient. Your body cannot also produce milk and sustain another life if it's in danger in itself or it's healing. So that was one of the reasons why C-section was not really high on my choices of way of birth, because it's known that it takes a while for the body to start producing milk. And unfortunately, yeah, I cannot feed Andrea by myself or with the milk I produce. So we're giving her a bit of formula next, or quite a bit of formula next to it. And that is our biggest challenge right now, all together with finding sleeping patterns. But for the rest, she's doing amazing. She's growing, she's more alert. And yeah, we feel very lucky that she is good. And to be honest, yeah, between the two evils, I'm happier that I was the one having all the complications rather than her. And yeah, it's maybe easier to be angry or to deal with you being sick rather than your baby, because yeah, they're so small. They're so small. Also, by the way, the baby was born at 3.2 kilos, so nowhere near being a too big baby. So I'm very happy that I didn't have to do an induction, otherwise I would be pissed, because everybody got wrong the I don't know, the guess of the size of the baby. And I was seen by 6 different people, between gynecologists and midwives, that touched my belly, felt the size of the baby and said it's going to be a huge baby. Oh my God, people. It's 2021 and we still cannot measure the size of a baby in the belly at 40 weeks or 38 weeks. When they're younger, yes, but the echoes don't work very well after 32 weeks, so that's why they don't do them anymore. Anyways, I've been talking a lot. I was trying to put a lip liner on, but that is a little bit the story of the birth and the aftermath of my little baby Andrea. And I'm gonna put on lipstick and see if she's awake, and I can show her to you. Here she is. Unfortunately, she's still sleeping, or fortunately for me, but you get to see her like this. And maybe I'll actually start opening up the swaddle, since it's time for food, and let her wake up, because she's anyways a little bit awake. There we go. There we go. Hey, baby girl. Oh. Thank you so much for watching. You can follow us on Instagram. I show more of her on there, and I'll see you in my next video.
Bye, guys.